features in DHIS2, and this session is going to be split up into two parts. So I'm going to start us off just by discussing some of the core features, and it's going to be pretty quick, I know, because it's already 10. And then I'm going to hand it over to Sam, who's going to talk about a custom application that they have made in order to support some of the offline features, which is a good example of how some of this extensibility that we spoke about on the first day can be applied to kind of assessing or kind of handling a real life practical problem. Okay, so I'm going to go over both a mix of web features and Android features. And for some of you, you might be aware of them. For some of you, you might not. I'm going to touch on aggregate data entry and how that works. Also offline dashboards, which is a relatively new feature. And then I'll discuss the Android app. And I'll just walk through some of it real quickly in terms of aggregate data entry, tracker data entry, and some of the local analytics, which I think is maybe something new for many of you in terms of the various visualizations that can be used and viewed offline. So I'll start with the aggregate data entry. So for aggregate data entry, you can work offline both in the current and the new version of the data entry application, and I'll show it real quickly. Basically how this works, data gets cached locally on your computer, okay? So on the device that you're using when you're offline. So the web browser or tab that you have open, if you go offline, it must stay open, right? And then once the connection is restored, the data can be uploaded. Now, I'm not able to do a live demo of this because, of course, if I disconnect from the internet, it's going to run, we're going to have some problems with all the conference setup. But what you'll see here is that I'm currently offline, and there's this message at the top that you are offline, data is stored locally. So I'm entering the data offline at the moment, okay? And the data gets saved on my computer at this point in time. Okay, and then my connection is restored. So then I get this pop-up, there is data stored locally, please upload it, okay? Then I click on the button and it'll upload the data to the server itself, okay? So there is a little bit of action here in order to upload the data that's there. Now, when working offline, you can switch between organization units that you have loaded previously. But if you try to open a part of the hierarchy that you haven't accessed when you were online, it won't open. Now, you have to be careful here because if you're moving between organization units and you hadn't loaded it previously, the previous data won't be there either. So you have to make sure you're entering into organization units where there is no data, unless you will run into some problems. There will be conflicts when you're working offline and try to upload that information. So just be cognizant of this. This is not really what I would say a long-term solution where you kind of are offline for days at a time. This is more to kind of help you with intermittent connections, I would say. So this is the new data entry app, and things look a little bit differently here. So I'm offline here. You get a little indicator at the top that you're offline, and it's entering data here. And it'll just save that same way locally on your system. And when you get online, it just uploads the data automatically. So there's no action you need to take. It just gets synced. So I move from offline to online, the little indicator there, and then the data gets moved online. And same type of thing, you can move between organization units, etc. They have to be previously loaded. You can see here in this example, it'll tell you that it can't load those other organization units because I'm offline at the moment. Okay, so just as a quick summary, you can enter data offline in both the current and the new data entry applications. You can change organization units that you've already loaded, but be careful because any data that you haven't loaded would not be there, okay? You should not close the tab that you're in if you're working offline. So, if I have this open, I don't want to close it, right? You can close your computer or whatever, put it to sleep, but don't close the tab, don't close the browser. And like I said, it's meant more to combat intermittent connections rather than a permanent solution for working offline. I'll touch on that, and we'll have Sam also discuss this in a bit more. It will not work either in incognito or private modes. So, sometimes we talk about this clearing the cache and all this other stuff. Don't clear your cache if you have data stored on your computer, okay? Because then it will be removed. We also have some functionalities for offline dashboards. Basically, any of the dashboards inside of DHIS2 that you make can also be saved and stored offline. And this is a bit more longer term actually than the data entry. So these are stored in cache, and as long as you don't log out of DHIS2, you can close your tab, you can do anything you want as long as you save the link, and you can load that dashboard again. Okay. So how this works, this is a dashboard in DHIS2. There's this button here, and I can make it available offline. It'll store that dashboard, okay, locally in my cache. Same thing, I'm just doing it for another one here. And you'll see an indicator here, I'm currently online, right? So I have to be online to start this process. But now when I go offline, you'll see here any dashboards that aren't saved, I'm not able to access them, okay? But the dashboards I have synced on my computer, I am able to open those up and I can review all the various items that are on that dashboard. Now there is an indicator over in the corner there. It'll pop up here in a second where it says when the data was synchronized, right? So because you're offline, of course, these dashboards are not going to update with the latest data that's online unless you restore your connection. Okay, so it could be a couple days or whatever that's indicated depending on the time you've been offline. When the connection is restored, the data will synchronize again for that dashboard so you can view the latest data. Okay, and like I said, the nice thing about this, yeah, so if I close the browser, as long as I have the link, I can open it up again, okay? So as long as I don't log out of DHIS2, so I could be offline, I could close the browser, I could close the tab, whatever I want to do, okay? I just maybe bookmark the dashboard page and it'll open it up again. If I do log out of DHIS2, then I won't be able to access that anymore, okay? So just be cognizant of that if this is something that might be useful to you to use in an offline setting. Okay, and then of course, when you're done with all this, you can remove it from the offline storage as well, using the same kind of context menu. Okay, so outside of the web features, our more permanent solution, at least for the core of DHIS2, Sam will talk about some alternative options through extensibility, okay? But in the core of DHIS2, our kind of permanent action in terms of addressing offline functionality is via the Android application. So we support both offline data entry for aggregate as well as for tracker, okay? So it works offline and you can stay offline for quite some time. You can then synchronize when you have an internet connection. The interesting thing, there is a lot of features or functions that work offline that maybe can be quite useful. So for example, for aggregate data entry, all your validation rules will work. For tracker data entry, you still have duplicate detection. So if you're entering a unique ID that's already been entered into the system or someone's name, it'll do that fuzzy matching and still tell you that that's the case. If you're generating unique IDs through DHIS2, you'll still be able to generate those IDs offline. It will reserve unique IDs for you to utilize. So some of this kind of is taken care of when you're looking at the Android app. So I'll just open that up. This is going to be hard with the mic here. Try my best. Okay, so just turning off my internet. I don't have any internet connection currently. Okay, and what we can do is use both the, so when you log in, and I apologize, it's not super clear. Yeah, okay, thanks, John. Just let me go back. Okay, so what we have when we log into the Android app is a mix, depending on your system, of both aggregate as well as tracker, aggregate data sets and tracker programs. And you'll see the text and you don't see it super clearly here, but it'll tell you if it's a data set or if it's how many tracked entities are in your program essentially. And because I'm currently offline, what it's done is synchronize a certain amount of tracked entities or data sets to my Android device for me to work on. And we can set these parameters, and I'll show that really quickly in terms of where we can set this up, because you can decide for a specific program, let's say you want to download, I don't know, 500 tracked entities. to the device. It'll then download the latest 500, store those on your device, and you'll be able to work with those offline. So if I just open up an aggregate data set, so I'm able to work with aggregate data that's already been entered on the web. I can also then edit it on my device, or I can make new entries on the device itself. So just open up one up that's already been there. So you can see when I go to save this, it asks me if I want to check my data quality. What this means basically is that it's running my validation rules for me. So I can check these validation rules even if I am offline, entering data. I can save this data on my device as I enter this on here. Now, one thing about Android in particular, it doesn't support any type of custom forms. So you have to use either kind of section or default forms inside of DHIS2. And we do recommend that, these are not very long forms, maybe 5 columns maximum, right? Because even if you're in landscape mode on a tablet or something like that, they could have a very small tablet. They could have a phone that's very narrow. So you don't want to be having too many data items when you're using this method to collect your data. For example, if you have a form with 20 columns, that won't really work very well on an Android device. There's a lot of limitations in terms of how you scroll depending on the screen size. Okay, so we also support tracker data entry offline. And like I said, I'll just enter person. Okay, so I can register that person. It will generate, so it might be a bit hard to see, but there's this child number here. It still generates those IDs if you're using some type of automated system generated ID in your program. It will do that offline. Okay. It also will do duplicate detection offline based on what's stored on your device. Okay. So I've entered a local ID and it's telling me that there's somebody with this ID already registered on my Android device. So it's not actually going to allow me to register this new person. It'll do the same thing if the names are the same or something like that. Okay. It'll do that duplicate detection while you are offline. So just enter some more information. Okay, I can add new events. I can schedule events. I can make my referrals and transfers. I can make relationships as well. So I'll just do that quickly. I'll just add a little bit of data and I just want to show you a bit of information. So one thing unique to the Android device, it's not really an offline feature, but you can see that for some of the option sets, etc., I can make visual configurations and assign, for example, various icons to my options. I can have different layouts for how they appear. So instead of showing as a dropdown, they'll show as an icon, for example. So I'll just quickly save some of this information. Okay. Now, when you're offline and you want to restore the data, of course, you can't sync the data at this point in time. It'll give you a message, you're offline, you're not able to do that. So when you have your internet back, I'll just restore my internet connection. Okay. And you can sync from many different places. So you can sync from the tracked entity itself. Let's say you've entered 15 records for your day. You can also do it from the home page, so you can sync all 15 records at once rather than doing it one by one. There's many different places to do this. So I'll go ahead and send this to the online system. And we'll just give it a moment. Okay, it says sync successful. So we'll just double check. Okay, and here's this person that I entered on my Android device. Now I can access them online and I could continue my workflow if I needed to, or someone could do some follow-up or checkups, whatever needs to be done. Or I could, of course, keep entering information on the Android device for this particular person. Okay. So the other item that's quite unique, and I'll just touch on quickly, is the ability to add local analytics on the Android device. So let's say I have 200 records on my device, along with 10 data sets for each org unit that my user is assigned. They're assigned 3 org units. They have 30 data sets accompanying for each month that they're assigned for. So there's a lot of different features actually for local analytics on the Android device. And what it's going to do is just use the tracked entities or the data sets that are stored on your device and generate various indicators or various outputs from this information. So for example, here I can display various types of visualizations offline on my Android device. It'll use local data. We support various visualizations. I have a link to the visualizations that are supported in the app. Oh, sorry, closed it completely. Okay. So if I go to the tracked entity tracker program, let's say, I'm just going to open up one of these records. Okay. And you can see here, we support a lot of different pieces of information. So you can have various information for the individual case. You can have various parameters defined where you can review them quickly. You can have also various types of visualization supported for the individual, right? So we support both aggregated information as well as kind of individual information directly on this patient dashboard. So there's an example here of the growth monitoring chart, for example. We have their weight, we have their temperature, any type of numerical data that you can map over some period of time. You're then able to create visualizations for these individual records. So these are automatically created once they're configured for every person that is in the system, basically. And you don't have to be online at all to generate any of this information. It's all generated and stored locally as well. Okay, thanks, John. Okay, so just real quick, for those of you kind of interested I've shared some resources in the presentation. We have an accompanying web application called the Android Settings app. And here's where you define a lot of the parameters for working offline. So for example, if you want to add in those visualizations or create any of those dashboards that I showed, you set them up here. If you want to define how many tracked entities that the device that are stored on the device when a person syncs, you do all of that here. So as an example here, I have some global settings and I can say how many tracked entities do I want to download on the Android device. I can also do it by program, okay? And I can say, for example, I want to download 500 tracked entities on the device, or I can change this, of course. We don't really recommend more than 500, but there are obviously exceptions to these rules. Okay. So same thing for all of these. So same thing for all of these visualizations. So we just create them in Data Visualizer like we would normally. Oops. Right? So we're just taking visualizations we've made in Data Visualizer, and then we're adding them to the dashboard. So I didn't actually show for aggregate, but you are able to create multiple dashboards on the device. So you can see here, I have one for infant and young child feeding. I also have one for ANC contacts as an example. So you're able to create multiple tabs and have multiple dashboards stored on the Android device, and it will use the local analytics that are stored basically on that Android device in order to display this information. So a person will get real-time updates as they enter more data into their data sets, or as they add more tracked entities to their programs. All of these analytics do get updated on the device as well. Okay. So we use the web to set all this up. You create your visualizations here just like you would normally, and then you're for aggregate data or for tracker data. Okay. And then you just kind of add them through this Android settings web app, and you're able to kind of add the visualizations that you want to see. Okay. All right, so this was a bit of a crash course just on some of the core features that we have. So once again, we support offline dashboards through the web. We support aggregate data entry through the web. And through Android, we support both aggregate and tracker data entry. We also support all of these visualizations that I've shown, and they all work completely offline. They're all updated offline as is required. Okay, and Android is more of our, let's say, permanent solution for working offline, whereas for the web, it's more for combating intermittent internet connections. So what I'd like to do is ask my colleague Sam to come up, and he's going to talk about an application they've made to deal with maybe more permanent offline, a more permanent working offline when you're using a computer, right? So not just a mobile device of some kind. Okay, so Sam, please welcome you to the stage, and you can walk them through the application you guys are working on.
Hello. Mm. Hello, hello. Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. So for me, I also would like to show you a different approach that we are um, doing for the offline. But before I go to the demo, I would just give you a bit of the background of what we are trying to do. And importantly, I would like to mention that what we are doing is not a separate thing, it's built up on or extending DHIS2 the core the core platform. Let me quickly go through the problem we are trying to solve. So what we are doing or supporting the ministry, there's one project that the ministry would like to collect the household information. Basically, the health worker, they will need to go to every village, a part of as part of their activities. They will visit every village in the catchment. They will do kind of the survey, how many families living in this village under my catchment, and then all the demographic details or the census detail, like what kind of water are you using, what kind of toilet, latrine are you using. So that's what they would do, and these activities have been going on for almost 10 years, and usually they use paper to record those information. And originally, the name of the project they call family folder, as you can see, because each family will have one folder, and they will store that in that paper to collect all the information of that family. And then the next family will have another folder. And as you can imagine, if we have 10 families, we have 10 folder in that health centers, which we think is not really sustainable. So every time you need to carry that folder, you cannot lose it. And this is what we are trying to help and to solve. So you don't have to print more papers, and then you can reuse the information you already collected from previous years and continue the data collection. Another one, because like I mentioned, Laos has been using DHIS2 for almost 10 years now, and there are many donors like UNICEF, the WHO, also supported the devices, the equipment. So there are many kind of devices available at different level of the facilities. And health workers also already familiar with DHIS2 and tracker. They are using tracker for field programs like malaria. Now they are also using for immunization. And most importantly, because the health worker needs to visit every village, right? It's important that the internet connection has to reach those areas, but in reality, it's only about 60% that you get the internet coverage. So for 40%, you still need to have the offline solution. So with that in the context, this is what we are we come up. So as you can see from Nick, because we need to have offline, and offline also already have some tools for that. So for web, right, as Nick showed, you can do for aggregate, and dashboard already works on offline. For Android, it's also working really well. For you can do aggregate, you can do event tracker and analytics. But in our case, maybe Android might not be the best solution. And then since the web is not supporting tracker, then we think it should be another way to do it. The second one, we want to be the seamless switch, right? If you have internet, you can use online. If you don't, you use offline, but you don't need to switch, right? For example, if you use the web, if you want to use for online, but if you want to do offline, you need to switch to Android. You need to know how to operate the Android app. But for these activities, because it's also not very frequent, it's about twice a year. So if they're already familiar with the online, then they can continue with the same workflow offline. That will be better. So you don't need to train again. And as I mentioned, because many part of the country will be supported by different donors, and different donors will support different devices, right? You have maybe the laptop, PC in the north, you have the mobile in the middle, and then you have the tablets in the south. So we don't want to start procuring more devices. They already have. And if we adopt for Android, then for those that don't have the Android, then you need to buy it again. So what we want to do, what you have, we would like to reuse that one, and then you can continue with the data collection. And the last one is we would like to have the capacity to maintain it. Like we don't have the big team. So if you do Android, maybe you need another dedicated team to not just to develop, but to also support the Android. You need to know Android really well, how to debug and or. But we are using is the web technology. So we can use the same team that we have to develop and also to maintain. And this is what the solution we are using. So we call the PWA, or Progressive Web App. It's quite a new technology. Not sure if many will be familiar with this, but basically it's just a web technology that you can use to use it as an app on the mobile. But in a nutshell, you can think of it as just a box of Chrome running behind. So they have more functionality like offline, but behind the scene is using all the Chrome technology. So any device that can run Chrome can use this approach. Okay, so now I would like to switch to the demo. The screen is still. Okay. So as I mentioned, it works on web, on the PC or the mobile and the tablet, but I would like to show the tablet one because that's what Lao is using a lot. But before that, from the Android, as you know, right, if you want to have to install, you need to go to Play Store, you need to have account, then download the app. But for this, we are, like I said, we want the seamless experience, so you just use the online, the same workflow. So what the health worker needs to do, and this is just one-time thing. Right? So first, you just go to the app. So the app is made using PWA, the Progressive Web App, but it's also built on top of DHIS2. So it's not something outside and a separate app. So what I will show, cannot see the, but it's okay. So I will just select this app. We call it Family Information App. So this is one is still online, right? So if they are comfortable, they have the connection, they can just use online and continue. You don't have to worry about, should I use offline, should I use online? So if they have internet, they can sync and then it should be okay. And this is my demo account. So I just assign this to be responsible for these 3 villages. So I can just select one. And as you can see, in the past, you have this information in the folder, right? And they just did the new one, the latest one in 2019, where they recollect all the information into DHIS2, and then they stop all the papers. And now we will continue with the online one. And as I see there, now there are many families registered in this on DHIS2. I can just quickly go to one families, what kind of information we collect. So we have the information. I'm not sure if it's well, really not very clear, but as you can see, so basically this is the family members, right? So what we collect, how many members in your family, at least name, age, any insurance are you using, but also the information of the family, like any birth, any death happened in the previous year, what kind of water you are using for drinking, for example, and all. But now I would like to use this one for offline. Let's say if next month I need to visit the second village to update the information for 2024, right? And I know that this village will not have internet. So what I would do from Chrome with PWA, if this app is customized with that, you will have this option to on here, say install app. So this is part of the Chrome. So if you ask if I want to install, yes, I want to install. And if I want to add this to my home screen, yes. And now going back to my home screen, you will see just like the Android app, but now it's running with Chrome with the possibility of using it offline. So I will also open my app now. Take some minute to load. And as you can see, now it's the same thing, but running on the PWA. So same UI, same workflow. So I just need to continue with that village. I can see this. But now if I want to use offline, there's the talk button there. Yeah, there's a button here there on top. It will say offline or online. So now if I want to switch from online to offline, then it will ask me to which village you want to download, because you need that information in your device, right? And in this case, we also limit the number of villages you can download for one time. We don't want you to download all the villages. We are not sure if your device will be able to accommodate that size of data. So you can select at least 2 or 3 villages, but for this demo, I can just select one. Oops. Yeah, try one more time. And then click on download. It will take a few seconds to download all the data to my, in this case, my tablet. Yeah, based on the size of your data, it will take some time and depend on the number of villages you select. So now it's already downloaded to my tablet. I can click on OK. It will refresh a little bit. And now if I can select the new village, now you will see. And the toggle, the button up there is also switched to offline mode. And now I can continue. Let me switch off the internet for this tablet. As you can see, right, if I select the village that I didn't download, you will not see the information, but only this village that have, it will continue with all the information. So what I can do now is I can either update the family's information. For example, this is the family that already collected. I want to update the information for 2024. I can select 2024. Let's see if we have, for example, we have 6 members. We want to, now the family has 1 more member. I can type it. And then all the information that is required, you can just select just to save some time. And then the status, which I can talk more into detail if you are interested in this case, because about the population movement, we can also use this to check if this member already transfer or move to somewhere else. But for me, I would like just to show the offline. Okay. And as you can see now, we have new members for this family. So next one, I would like to try to add another new member, new family. Let's say this family is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this family already registered. What's the book number? And let me just add one family member. Head of the family. Yeah. So now I successfully add one member to this family and also registered the new family. So what I can do now, if I finish my activities and I come back to the facilities where I have the internet and I'm ready to send this data to online, then what I can do, there's a button there for pushing this data to DHIS2. So I can just do that. It will tell me how many data points that I entered. So I don't have internet right now, but it will also tell, yeah, you need to connect. So let me just go back and connect my Wi-Fi. Okay, so I will do it again. It will tell me how many data point that will be pushed to DHIS2, and then now I have internet, it will push to DHIS2 and refresh just to clear that that all the data that I saved locally already in DHIS2. So now let me go back to the online. Okay, refresh a bit. And go back to the second village. So here you can, there will be all the information here, but then I just need to search for the new family that I just entered. And there you can see it's already in DHIS2 Online. Yeah, so that's basically it for the demo of how we using another way of implementing offline using the same DHIS2 core functionalities. And as you can see, this one is quite a unique workflow, right? It might not work with other countries really well, but it can be customizable. And right now we are working with HIPS India to implement the same thing in Bhutan. So if you are interested in learning more about this one or would like to see if it will fit to your context, you can always contact us at HIPS Vietnam. And we'll be really happy to show you more in details of the demo and what it can be done in apart from this. Yeah, so that's how I would wrap up my presentation and demo. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sam. Maybe we can take one question and go for the tea break. So is there any question? Yes, Sam.
I have a question for Nick. Nick, is it related to any version or this offline mode? Is it related to any version or it's not related to any version for the DHIS?
What? I'm sorry, what do you mean is related to the version?
You mean this offline mode is related to 3.4, 3.9?
Like when are these, the features I showed
Yeah.
available? Yeah, okay. So the offline dashboards actually was implemented quite some time ago. So I think it's like 2.37 or 3.8. And for the Android functionality, so one thing I should clarify, and maybe it's not always so straightforward, there are different versions of Android and there are different versions of DHIS2. Okay, so the latest version of the Android app is 3.0 and the latest version of DHIS2 is 41. So actually, some of the features, depending on what you see, might not be supported in either the app itself or in the DHIS2 version itself. So everything I showed should work on quite a few versions back. In terms of the Android kind of sync and all the visualizations and everything, that has been around, I believe, since I want to say 2.8, Android 2.8, maybe. So that's quite a maybe 2 years back, I think. But they've added more chart types, etc., that work offline. So, but there's also this web settings app, which has its own, it's a continuous release. So it also, the ecosystem there, it's a little bit difficult to navigate because you need to make sure you have the right settings app, the right DHIS2 version, and then the right Android app. But I would say if you've done anything in the last 2 years, you're using anything in the last 2 years, it should work for you. Yeah.
Second one is that for the dashboard, if I'm a special organization, I'm making some data offline, data entry, my dashboard related to my organization, it will be updated or no?
So if you're offline, your dashboard is offline and you've entered data online, the dashboard does not get updated until you go back online.
Even
Right.
it's related to my organization.
Well, you can't, and using the DHIS2 front end, if I'm offline, right, and I enter data, my analytics has not been run.
Mm.
Okay, so the dashboard will not update.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, take another question because we are late for the break. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. I'm JP from the World Bank. I'm asking this question from a country perspective, exploring DHIS2. I took note of the features for the client health registry. And let's say we already have the client health registry up and running. Can we now download specific sub lists of that client registry to specific mobile devices and operate in an offline environment? And then add the attributes there for, let's say, a nutrition project, and then later on synchronize that to the national DHIS2 instance. Is that even possible? Thank you.
So, like if I understand the question correctly, so you have the national client health registry somewhere, so you download it offline for one particular place, and you can add additional attribute, but you have to configure all the attributes what you need to add first, like just the metadata part. And then you can try to enter all the data offline, and then it can be synchronized. Only thing what we want to, what we experience is not about how much data you can try to download. It's because of your tablet or the mobile devices, what it can allow. So if you have a big hard drive, all things, then you can download as much as possible. But like just to make sure that we support for all the device, we always just say you can download only for these places. Those kind of settings can also be configured on the online side, on the DHIS2 configuration part, so that you can try to download it. And then you can enter all the things. What Sam told around here, because all this data was already in DHIS2. In 2019, they entered all the data manually from the paper book into DHIS2. And we didn't want it to print all the paper again. And that's why you just say, data is already there, use the new technology. When you go to the field, you can actually download, enter additional details for this year and upload it. So that we save the money for the paper printing, and also you just updating the record. So then the workload for the health worker is much reduced rather than entering the same information again and again, and then they have to import it. So that was what you're asking, is exactly like what Lao have done. Instead of adding an attribute, we are adding the entire new family and updating new records. So this is something which can be customizable for each and every needs. And we tried with the family information because it's too heavy. The similar kind of approach can be applied for EAR or for other program, because the data is quite small. Here we are calculating or collecting entire population. When we talk about EAR, we are talking about only 4% of population, right? So if you're talking about delivery, it's 2% of the population. So if work for 100%, we can also work for all the other programs. And this was the trial run which we wanted to test, so it's working fine.
Yeah, thank you, John. Now the tea break time, please. Thank you all.
Yeah, just For the tea break, if we can be back by 11, like 5 after 11 maybe. Okay, and we'll start with the country presentations afterwards, okay? What is it?